Hey everybody, it's Jake, and today we're going to go over cordless drill drivers and impacts. So today I just want to take some time to cover what these do and what they're for and what application you use this over this or this over this, because there is a little bit of confusion out there, I think. And for this one, I've got three settings on there. I've got a drill setting, I've got a driver setting, and then I have a hammer setting, and we're going to talk about what all three of those do. And then I also have something called an impact, and then we'll talk about this one as well, and kind of which one you would use in what application, because I think there's a little bit of confusion out there. Now, what you're going to find at the store is something like this, and this one just happens to be made by Rigid. I picked this up on a really good deal on a Black Friday sale with a bunch of other tools, but we're just going to be covering these today. There's a lot smaller platform too, and not just Bosch makes them. Milwaukee makes a really nice set of these as a 12-volt system. And so I've got again a impact here, and then a driver, and it does have a drill setting I can put this on. But we'll talk about why you would maybe want one or the other, or where this would work really good compared to where this would work. But they're all based off of the same system or same batteries, and it's these. Okay, these are lithium-ion batteries. The nominal charge, or the average that it should be, is about 3.6 volts. That's where this kind of lives. They can be charged up to 4.2 volts. And so what I have in here, this is called the 12-volt system. Actually, if I look on the tag here, 10.8 volts is what it will be nominally, and I can charge it up to 12 volts. That's a maximum I can go. On these, they call these an 18-volt system, and what I have inside of here, I've got 5 of these stacked up inside, and I don't know which way they go. They could go this way, or they could go this way. It really doesn't matter. It's just kind of how they orient these batteries. But if I've got 5 of these, 5 times that 3.6 is going to give me 18 volts. Now, some companies, what they do is they measure what the full capacity is, which is about, again, about 4.2. And if I'm doing that, 4.2 times 5, and that's why some systems say 20 volts instead of 18 volts. Still 5 of these in what are called series. And then you kind of step up from there. So if it's just usually one stack, that's usually what's called 2 amp hours. I got 2 stacks, it's 4 amp hours. So you got 3 stacks of these, 3 stacks of 5, that would be 6 amp hours. And that's why our battery keeps getting kind of bigger and bigger as we go. And so the voltage, that's our power, right? That's what's getting the juice to here and giving us the oomph that we need. So obviously this is not going to be able to drive as much and be as powerful as something like this with a 12-volt system compared to when it's fully charged 20-volt system, obviously. And the amp hours here, that has to do with how long the run time is. So for example, amp hour is how many amps can I run for 1 hour continuously and this still work or function properly. And so 1 amp hour would be, I can run this piece of equipment 1 amp, and it should run for 1 hour. For this, with this battery setup, I should be able to run this at 4 amps for 1 hour, and it should work for that entire time. Now, I'm not ever doing that, but that just kind of helps you know kind of basically how much gas do I have in the tank, okay? You want to think of voltage as your power, or your horsepower, if you will. It's not quite the same thing. And your amperage as your gas. How many of those little electrons do I have in there to keep pushing through those batteries to just keep me going and going and going? This is basically a bigger tank of electrons to keep this running. And so this is probably the most common, is this 4 amp hour, where I've got 2 stacks of these in what are called series. And that's gonna, if I have 3 stacks, I got 6. If I got 1 stack, it's 2. And that's what most are. Most packs, if they're just 1, that's a 2 amp hour system. So hopefully that helps you understand what's going on as far as the batteries. But this is the same thing. All I have here, you can kind of see it. I have 3 of these, 1, 2, 3 here in series as well. And that's gonna just be nice because I like this. It's great for getting into small areas, small spaces. It's not really heavy. This is obviously much heavier, but that's how this is set up. Is just I've got 3 of these in series, giving me my 12 volts when it's fully charged. And technically it's like 12.3 if it's fully charged, but for marketing purposes they just say 12. So let's talk about some of the controls that are on here. Most systems have a button on the side here that if I want to drive it or go clockwise, I'm going to push the button this way. If I want to go counterclockwise, I'm going to push the button this way and it will rotate the other way. And then sometimes if you sit in the middle, it's kind of like a trigger lock, if you will. And so that'll kind of lock it out so you don't actually turn it on. And that's kind of a nice feature. And on this one, I also have I have 3 switches right here. I've got one that has a symbol for a hammer, one that has a symbol for a screw, and one that has a symbol for a drill bit. And so let's talk about those real quick and what each one is. Actually, let's start off with the screw. So if I want to use this to drive whatever, screws, lag bolts, whatever, I'm going to use a bit like this. This happens to be a Phillips bit, and I can go ahead and put this in here. And what I like to do, it's probably not the best technique, but I'm just going to hold my clutch very carefully, pull the trigger slowly, and then once it kind of bites down, I'm going to do that final tightening with my hand. I'm not going to use my trigger because I don't want to rip my hand off. But then I can set what's called my clutch here. So I can set this to a really low setting, and that will allow this just to actually kind of bottom out really quickly so I don't push a bolt or a screw through a piece of wood if it's a small screw. Or if I'm using construction screws, I got a 2.5, 3-inch screw, I can dial this way up and even take on this one I can't take the clutch all the way out. I would have to switch that to the drill bit here in order to do that and take that off. So anytime I'm driving screws, I want to make sure I set this clutch to the right amount of what's called torque, and that's the twisting force. It's how hard it's twisting. I put it on a lower number. That's less torque, less twisting force, and if I've got a small screw, and if I don't want to push that through the board, I'm going to set it on a small amount of torque, like a 1 well, actually, each one of these numbers is the division of, looks like 5. So 1's the lowest, and then I'm going to go 5 marks, and it goes to 20 here. So something 1 through 20, if I got something real fragile, and I can even hold that, and the clutch will engage, and it won't let it go any farther, which is nice. If I need a little bit more oomph, I can crank this up to 60, and my drill lives usually between 60 and 80, where it lines up with my arrow here. So that's what I want to use if I'm driving screws or fasteners into, let's say, a piece of wood. The next one is the switch. Let's go over the drill bit. All that really does, it locks out my clutch. It doesn't allow my clutch to even pop on, even if I have this dialed all the way up to 100. It kind of eliminates or cuts out the clutch altogether, because I really don't want my clutch running while I'm using a drill bit, because it's just not necessary. And then the third one, it's this little hammer. So the hammer, actually it's already on hammer, that hammer has to do with a bit that we use when we're using it in, let's say, concrete, masonry, brick. So let's talk about this bit real quick. This is a special type of drill bit designed for going into mortar, masonry, cinder blocks, concrete, that kind of thing. And what this is doing is actually designed to actually strike or kind of punch down rapidly at whatever I'm trying to drill through. It's not like a normal bit. Yes, it's twisting, but it's kind of making a small strike or chipping away as it spins. So let's get this set up real quick. Let's do a quick demo. I like making sure that this is set on the low setting, and let's talk about that real quick since we're here. Most drill drivers will have a setting. This one I got a 1 or a 2, so right now it's on 1. If I'm gonna go faster, it's 2, 1. Could bring it a little slower. If I've got a thin bit, especially if I'm just drilling a small hole, I'll go ahead and put that on a 2, and that's great. If I'm doing something like this, where I'm going into masonry or something like that, or I have a larger bit, I want to switch that to 1, because the larger the bit, the slower the speed I want to go. The smaller the bit in general, the faster I can run my drill. So we're going to set this on our number 1, Make sure we are on our hammer there. If you can see that little hammer there. There we go. And let's see how this does. So I'm about, I don't know, about 3/8 of an inch, 1/2 inch at least into my brick here. Let's see what it does on some mortar here. Let's see how that works. You can see right there, that mortar is about 1/2 inch, and it only took about, I don't know, 10 seconds to get through the mortar into my brick. So if I was drilling through a bunch of stuff, I'd probably get a little bit heavier duty drill. They do have larger hammer drills where actually it's really striking or really punching at stuff. You can go a lot faster. But for kind of everyday stuff where I just need to drill a hole into a piece of brick or into a cinder block and I don't need to do a whole lot of it, this tool is going to work fine for you. But that's the setting. And now some of you are saying, well, isn't that the same thing as an impact as this? If I have that on a hammer? Nope, it's not the same. What this is doing on this drill, it's actually punching this down it's not far, it maybe only be a 1/16 of an inch, but it's constantly kind of pushing the bit down in this direction. Now with an impact, it's a little bit different. It's not hitting this way. What I have inside are little hammers and an anvil. I can just kind of, hopefully you can hear that. So little hammers are hitting the anvil every time it goes around. And what that's doing is giving me more striking force than just the motor doing what it's supposed to do, let's say in an application like this. That hammer action, or sometimes we call this impact, what's being impacted is the twisting force this way, not this way. And that's gonna help me out quite a bit. Especially I use this if I gotta drive like really long screws. This works really great. Sheet metal, that kind of thing works really great. But same controls. I've got a button here, right? If I push it this way, it's gonna go forward. If I push it this way, it's gonna go in reverse. If I push it right in the middle, that locks out my trigger if I need it. The other thing, some of these have, and not all of them do, you actually have a speed setting here, and I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, I'm assuming that's regulating the voltage going to this, right? You might be just a set of resistors in here, but low, medium, high. And that's just, that sounds to me like what's going on. So the highest setting, that's just getting the full voltage to my anvil. And let's show you a demonstration real quick. Okay, so we're gonna do a little side-by-side comparison between our drill driver and our impact, just to kind of show you the difference. And I've just got they're the same screw, 2.5 inch construction screw, pretty common. And I'm gonna have this set on screw on the driver setting, and I'm gonna max my clutch all the way out to about 100 here. And then we're just gonna give this a shot here and see how it looks. Okay, so it's about 4.5 seconds. With my impact, I'm gonna set this to 3. It will go a little faster, but that's okay. And we'll just see how long this takes. And you can see that was much faster. That took about, 3 seconds compared to the 5 seconds. And again, I really don't want to set this on the highest setting. That's really only designed for drilling. It's not designed for driving. So be careful of that when you're using these too. Something else as far as how these are designed. This has what's called a clutch in it. I kind of showed you that when I put my bit in here. And I can put a bit in here like this. I can put a drill bit in. And again, all I have to do is turn this by hand. It should come out. And I can put something in here all the way up to 1/2 inch, all the way down to something super small. Where on an impact, typically I will have just this hex fitting, and usually I have to pull this forward and that will eject the bit. And then I don't even have to do anything. I usually just press it in and it's locked in. It's not coming out. And usually all of these are designed this way because we're typically using these type of bits in this type of application. So hopefully that kind of demonstrates the difference between these two. Now we can actually, let me talk about these two little guys. I love these because they're nice and small. nice and compact. They're not real heavy. I can get into tight spaces. This one, again, this is my drill driver. I've got my clutch here, 1 through 10, and then I can max that out. I'm not max it out, but I can put it on my drill setting if I need to. But you'll notice I don't have a clutch like this. It only will accept these hex fittings here on my driver, as well as my impact right here. You can see this is pretty similar design to this guy right here. Now they do make drill bit sets that have this hex piece or hex shaft, or you can buy adapters, a little clutch or a little chuck that goes in here. Just know that these smaller drill drivers typically don't have a chuck. Some do, but most have this type of setup, and you can get an adapter chuck sometimes to fit on this if you want. That's totally fine. But let's do a little comparison between the driver here and the driver here. And let's see, I'm just going to use this screw right here, put it on my highest clutch setting. So that took about 7 seconds. And let's do our little comparison. I'm just going to use this to pull this one out. So this can also be used in reverse if you need to, which is nice. Let's switch this out. So that was, again, this was about 7 seconds. Pick a new spot. About, again, 5.5. And let's just do another sample with this one. Why not? Let's try our impact here and see what that looks like. So let's take another one of these out. These are really nice because you just press them in. Sometimes you got to pull it forward. They just drop in. Really easy to take in and take out. So let's see how long this takes. So you can see there, that took about 12 seconds to drive this in. And again, these aren't designed for driving really long screws. They're designed for smaller screws, smaller applications. So that's where this would be perfect. If I'm going to be driving longer screws or using this for a longer time, more construction stuff, this would be a great setup. But I'm not here to promote rigid, although I love this. I bought this about 3 years ago. It's stood up well. It does what it's supposed to do. Haven't had a problem. I really love the Milwaukee stuff. I really love the DeWalt stuff. I don't think you're going to go wrong no matter which product you buy, to be honest. I love the Bosch stuff too. I've had these for 7 or 8 years, and the batteries are lasting forever. You really can't go wrong with these two. I really like the Milwaukee setup of this version. They have a 12-volt power version that I probably will buy next, even though I do love these. But I really love what Milwaukee's doing with their 12-volt system. It's very similar to this. So hopefully that gets you on the road to understanding a little bit more about what these are and what they do, and where you would use maybe this one over this one, or this one over this one, and what it's used for. So if you have any other questions about these types of drills, or what they do or what they're for, please leave those below. If you have something that I forgot about these that they can do that you really like, please leave those below, because I have used these, especially like if I'm cleaning my car. You can buy brushes that attach to this to get into your carpet. You can put die grinders on the end of this if you want to rough something up or polish something up. There's lots of things you can put on the end of this that do a lot of cool things, and I'll leave that for another video. But if you have any other tips or tricks that you think I forgot, please put those in the comments below. And this is Jacob All Trades saying we'll see you next time.